Yo guys, welcome to The Last Lap. Don't forget to drop a lovely, juicy 5-star rating if you're watching on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Hope you enjoy, and let's get into it. Austria is having been there now, is a very different experience to almost like any other Grand Prix I've been to, where it's, Silverstone, you've got a lot of Lewis fans, McLaren fans, Aston Martin fans, Verstappen fans, Leclerc fans. And every Grand Prix I've been to has been a very mixed bag. Yeah. You get certain preference, like in Miami, a lot of Perez fans, because Latin American connection, right? There's a big community there. At Austria, it is at least 80% is Max. Yeah. And it's all the orange is Max. And then most of the Red Bull, which is the Navy, is also Max. It is to go to a Grand Prix that's so like one driver is a different experience. Yeah.
Yeah, go to Zandvoort as well.
I mean,
yeah, and to be fair, some of the fans actually said that the Zandvoort was quite. Not only is it expensive, but it's difficult to get tickets. So actually, quite a lot of people. The reason why they go to Austria is because tickets are cheap. It's not that far away for them to drive as well. To support Max. So it's a big one for kind of the Dutchies. But it's a very It was a very interesting experience in terms of going, like you said, going to a race where 80% of the crowd is one driver. Like I was thinking in terms of, again, a Silverstone or even a Suzuka. Again, like there's very diverse fans for every single team, every single driver, whether it's McLaren or, Mercedes or Ferrari. So it was an interesting experience. But again, even culturally, like, the Dutchies, they like to obviously, they love camping and stuff. And that was kind of a big event for them. And there's definitely a lot of like drinking and all that. That's a big culture when you go to a race like that. And I'd imagine like if you go to say Suzuka or something, exactly. Yeah. when you can fly out. But I'd imagine if you went to Suzuka, for example, I don't think that would be the case. I think the culture is very different. So, but there is maybe again, there were some things, I'm not going to say it's obviously everyone, but there were a few people that were like,
we've heard quite a few stories over those 2 days. Negative stories. Like, what would you say the perception, like, especially speaking from a woman's point of view as well? Because I think that we heard reports last year of some pretty horrific stuff, and I can't say we saw anything in person, right? But again, there's two of us, and as much as the reports I heard from last year, having been there, I'm like, yeah, I can definitely see that.
If I'm looking to go to a Grand Prix, I will base a lot of that on the fans that are there and what I know I'd experience, especially like you said, the stuff that came out from last year. Obviously, I haven't seen anything this year yet. After my Twitter, whatever it is, ban, I could reload tomorrow and see what's coming out.
Unfortunately, the three of us, apart from Tommo, we're 600 tweets a day. That's all we can say.
Yeah, you're our roaming reporter for the weekend, boss. Because that's it.
But it is scary, especially when you see the other experiences. That it's not just women, but there's just a lot of discrimination going on at Austria. It does put me off because I always said I really like Austria as a track, and I would love to go, but it really does put me off knowing that stuff is going on. And I went to the Spanish Grand Prix and I was a bit apprehensive there. Obviously, regarding Fernando Alonso fans, I've not had the best experience sometimes with them as well. But actually, that was completely fine. It was more neutral, I think you'd think. There was just lots of Aston Martin merch everywhere, but they were really nice. But yeah, I think it definitely is a big thing. I think you could ask a lot of women about it. They will all say, Austria probably isn't on the list because of what you experience. And it's
obviously at the same time, it's important not to generalize all Verstappen fans exactly the same. Like that's, I want to make that clear. But there was definitely, even we noticed like there was a lot of drunk people. Certainly. And we only went there on the Friday and the Saturday. Like, we heard that on the Sunday it gets like even
let alone right now. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's just, but again, it's just really important not to generalize everyone the same, but it's just one of those things that needs to be kind of, I'm not, of course, I think it is, great that one track perhaps has a huge following for just, one driver. I think that's a unique thing about the calendar, but it needs to make sure that, the track and Formula One needs to make sure that people are being there responsibly and that the values that Formula One holds are also held by the fans themselves. And it's difficult when you have like alcohol mixed into it as well. I mean, there's like stores that only sell beer there. So it's a very fine line, but Formula One needs to make sure that they're kind of on top of it. Again, the values that Formula One hold need to be also upheld by the fans that are going to the races, regardless of who they support.
Because another thing that apparently they had problems last year at the Spanish Grand Prix, and this year they banned alcohol being served. And I think that might be something that they, obviously it's a big thing to do. I think they'd all be annoyed if you went, you're not sure you can't have alcohol.
Like Heineken stocks would go.
Yeah, but they had Heineken's,
anyway.
Stores and they were just the 0% ones, which obviously not many people want if you're like these.
I said that to Tom actually. I said, it would be a controversial move, but what about?
I think it would help.
Non-alcoholic beer would be in Formula One. Like if your motorsport,
security would have to be on it.
Yeah.
That is the only thing, because I can guarantee
they'll bring it in.
People will just try and bring stuff in. And then it's even harder to regulate.
Yeah. I guess
at least if you're charging like £8 for a beer, most people will go, fucking hell, that's a lot.
Well,
and they won't get as much. But
I think it would regulate it, because not everyone would be so eager to want to try and get it in. But obviously, then you do have that problem. But as well, if you're camping as well, you can bring it, can't you? So.
I think as well, like, to acknowledge the positives, I think Austria and the Red Bull Ring has done an incredible job at facilitating this almost like cult-like support of Max. It's like, it's incredible seeing all these people, and like, you know, you see like groups of friends like with matching t-shirts, and it's all, and there's so many little Max booths there, and there's like certain parts that you can't, like us with our tickets, you know, even though we had a grandstand ticket at turn 3, we couldn't go into certain sections because they were dedicated for people who'd bought their tickets through Verstappen.com.
Yeah, so that infield section, I think it's like turn 7
where
and
there's
8,
the big Red Bull statue.
The big Red Bull statue. So those are dedicated Max Verstappen stands, and actually someone who actually watches our content, Rob, who is a Ferrari fan, who actually was really helpful in terms of he's Austrian, he lives there, so he's been there a few times. He basically said that you can't even buy tickets to that stand. Those tickets are only available to the Max Verstappen website. So I think Max's people have literally bought out 2 grandstands, and all of those tickets are only sold.
And you can't just, like, this like a waiting list.
No.
You just
I think you have to actually buy a raffle ticket to even have the chance of buying a ticket. So it's big business. And again, it's cool on one side to have this unbelievable sport. And when you go there, like, there is something magic about seeing so much support for one driver. You know, it doesn't matter where you're from. They're all Max fans pretty much. We met someone from Abu Dhabi who was like a massive Max fan, and there is something really special about that. So as with everything, it's the minority that let the majority down. But it's important to have all bases covered. But there was definitely some magic about having like all of the fans after one driver, which is quite cool.
No, but he has a grandstand in Abu Dhabi as well. There was and he had a whole section as well. There was this orange section. I didn't even know it was there.
Before the championship win. That was for 2021.
Crazy,
It was
and it's just like, and they've got all these flags, and it's like he's going to have them at every track. He's just taken over F1 in a different way that like Lewis did, or Schumacher did.
It's actually an interesting point, because I don't think it's like, obviously you can question like whether for me, Max Verstappen is already in a sort of a hallmark list of great drivers as it stands already, right? But I don't think there's been a driver, you look at like MotoGP, and like Valentino Rossi is like the guy, and there's like bare grandstands for him, and everyone's got like yellow pyros and shit. This is like the first time that's actually kind of transcended into Formula 1 as well, I think.
I think
you've always had the fan bases and stuff, and you've always had like the most popular drivers. Like Lewis is a fucking icon in the UK.
I think worldwide, just in general.
But there's not that
you don't
fanatical
get that push. No.
thing. And I don't know whether it's a combination of F1 becoming more popular now, but also I think it's his personality, his driving style, it's everything.
I think the way the country, it's just the way the entire country just gets behind him is unbelievable. There was kind of like that pent up passion for motorsport, I think, in the Netherlands. That was always there. Like they had a track.
Not been anyone to like deliver it.
Exactly.
Right?
And once Max came, it was just, that's where it all came out. But when you look at, say, the UK, like there's a huge amount of Lewis fans, but there's a lot of other British drivers, Lando, and obviously like George as well.
Yeah, Jensen back in the day
exactly.
as well. And, like,
obviously Alex Albon as well. Huge Albon support, I'm sure. But that's the thing. When there's only one drive, one country, it's very different. And even, for example, even like the German, or when Schumacher was racing, maybe Senna, there was other like German, there was other like Brazilian drivers at the time as well.
Yeah,
so
I hear that, actually.
It's a little bit different.
You kind of got one generation after another. You had into Vettel, and then
I think it's the perfect storm, right? Because I asked this question of a couple people there, and I was like, "What is it about Max?" Before he got into the sport in 2015, all of these fanatical Max fans, like, I'm guessing they were, because a lot of these, it's not just young people at all. It's like all ages. So I was like, I'm guessing you were just like an F1 fan, like beforehand, but now it's like all in on Max. And again, it's a perfect storm. So that one driver representing, because you had like, I think Robert Dornbos, and there was a few Dutch drivers, but no one who was towards the top. Jos, obviously back in the day, and he was like, Jos was nowhere, right? So you got one top driver who's competitive, which we know is important. It's not enough, like we say about an American driver, it's not enough that Logan's in the sport. If he's fighting at the front, then that's going to do more for the Americanness. But also, I think that the main thing that people said is that they feel like Max comes across in this is very like this everyman style, and he's very he's very Dutch in the way he comes across. I think he's very kind of blunt and very to the point, which I mean, having, you know, I went to, when I went to Redline last year and I chatted with Max's team for Verstappen.com, and you know, those guys, it's like, the way they talk about Max is like, it really feels like he's kind of one of them.
There was also,
he feels like one of the boys, for want of a better term, you know, that's kind of how it comes. That's that. Yeah, literally. I think that's how the perception is around Max.
And there was also someone at the track that was being interviewed over the tannoy for like some kind of like, you know, there was some presenters or something, and he was actually asked, you know, what is it about Max? And he said I think the phrase that he uses, he's one of us. You know, that's how they feel with Max. Like he's one of them. So he represents, you know, how they feel. So it's just, he's not only is he in the prime of his career, he's an amazing racing driver, full stop, but he's cultivated this incredible audience, and, you know, fair enough.
Plus the Red Bull marketing machine is unreal.
Sorry, I just thought of an image of like, because obviously call one of them, like he's very Dutch and whatever. Imagine we had a British driver that just came up and was just like, I just got IB for every summer. And he's just a raver.
the Jack Grealish.
Jack Grealish of F1. Yeah.
I think that is the thing though, because I think people connect with Lewis, I think, in a different way.
Yeah.
I agree.
You don't feel he's British. Like you don't.
I think the support is just as like fanatical.
Yeah.
I just think
different.
It's probably less of like a relate. Well, I suppose it depends on the person actually, because then obviously, like for me, I guess it's a lot more relatable. But then also like, he is kind of like the everyman in terms of his background and growing up and stuff and getting into the sport. But I think maybe less in the way that he is now.
Yeah.
He's very creative. He's very like sort of outspoken and whatever. Whereas I think Max is just very sort of like, you could go for a drink with him at the pub. Yeah. I can't imagine going for a drink at a pub with Lewis Hamilton. He's just relatable in a different way.
Because I think, your character is going to define, like it'd be like George Russell and his fan base versus like, imagine like me as an F1 driver, but like twice as, like imagine Danny Dyer as an F1 driver and George Russell as an F1 driver, both British, but I think they cultivate different fan bases.
I think different classes as well.
Yeah, exactly.
When Niran was talking about the the Ibiza type F1 driver, that was like the opposite of George Russell.
Literally.
So I think that all kind of play. But again, I just find it super interesting. And again, like the Red Bull marketing machine on top of all that has just like there must be so many. I'd never appreciated it until going there. Just the scale of it. It's insane.
But so when I went to Zandvoort last year,
of course,
yeah. So obviously it's you could imagine like it's that, just again, but it's even more sort of like. It's even more saturated. Like I remember seeing one Haas shirt and being like, "How the fuck did you get here? How did you get here? Why are you here?
My guy's lost.
This guy, what's this polar bear doing?
There's always a random Haas shirt.
It's so mad. But like even outside of that, you'd see like a couple Mercedes fans, and they'd get a bit of like jokey grief from like the like Verstappen fans, obviously. Couple of Ferrari shirts, but genuinely, it was just orange everywhere, just a sea. And I don't know. I don't think a driver's ever managed that before.
No,
to be honest,
they haven't. Yeah. But it is the marketing as well. And I think Red Bull, not just with Max, but Red Bull, just in terms of their own team, are very good with their marketing in every category. You know, they're always doing the next step. They're always, doing what other teams aren't doing. And that's probably why, because like Lewis has so many fans, but I've never even thought of a Lewis Hamilton grandstand. It's just not a thing that, overly happens. I couldn't imagine loads of Lewis fans just sitting together. It feels weird, doesn't it? Whereas if you think of like
they're almost
Max,
spread out.
Yeah, they're all just kind of dotted around. There was always loads of them.
Yeah.
But then you think of Max, you just think like
orange,
the orange army.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just like, you can't necessarily even put a word on it and explain it. It's just
happens.
It just happens. Yeah, it's just the way things go.